So my company is Feather and Bone. It's a waterless skincare company. I'm originally Indian. I was born in India, but I grew up in Dubai and I went to school in the UK. And then I came to the US for university. So I guess you could say in some ways I'm a citizen of the world. So when I was 12, I had a really bad reaction to a store-bought face wash. And when you're 12 and you're breaking out, it's kind of the worst thing that can happen to you. So my mum took me to the doctor, and then we tried a bunch of other products, and everything just made my skin worse. And so ultimately my mum recommended this Indian ingredient called sandalwood, and it was my introduction to natural ingredients, and what it kind of also piqued my interest in what it means to have a skincare routine. And so what I found was that whilst there was a lot of magazines and information, even in the 90s back then, that talked about skincare, no one really talked about why you need to have a skincare routine. The problem we're solving is helping women develop a holistic skincare routine, because your skin's an organ. It's, it's alive, it's living and breathing, it has functions much like your heart and your lungs. And so we're helping develop a routine that brings in caring outside in, which is your product, and then also caring inside out, which means your lifestyle choices. So how you eat, how you sleep, how you manage stress. I think approaching this problem was hard, because the beauty space for so many years has just been a very male, might have been a female consumer, but the overall sort of decision makers in the industry were male. And I think the voice as a woman was getting lost. While I was developing some of my marketing materials for Feather and Bone, because we launched the first ever face wash tablet, I wanted to understand how other brands, when they came out with new products, launched. So this took me all the way to the history of skincare when the first soap was launched, and I think it was like in 1863 or something like that. And the ad, and I'm paraphrasing because the brand still exists, was to make your husband happy, use this face wash product. It was something to that effect. And I think that sort of thinking is still so prevalent, which kind of scared me. So I felt the voice as a woman, it was our insecurities that were getting pried on versus celebrating our confidence in who we are, and really making it about being healthy and not just beautiful. Of course, we all want to feel beautiful, but at what cost? And the cost, not actual monetary, but our own emotional cost. So it felt to me that it was important that a woman's voice was being heard, because it wasn't. I started out my life as a banker and my career as a banker, and I would sort of look at financial statements and read SEC filings, and you would read about the industry people who are running it, and a lot of them are men. And when I go to industry events, even now, there's definitely a shift, but predominantly, yeah, it's still a very male-orientated industry. Describe myself as an entrepreneur in 3 words. That's a really good question. Bold and brave, I would put as one word. Let me think. Bold, brave. I don't know. Creative, definitely. And I'd say holistic. I like to have my hands, and I like to know every piece of what's going on. So I don't know if holistic's the right word, but yeah. Overall, I'd say the hardest challenge is helping men understand why, how women shop. One of the biggest things that is hard to explain to them is the concept of sharing. So as women, our skincare routines are very personal, very private, and because of the technology world and the concept of people sharing something they like, they think that same logic really applies to skincare. And it really doesn't. As women, we don't just go up to our friend and say, oh, you need to try this. It can happen with makeup, but specifically face washes and moisturizers, unless someone asks you, it's not something that you do. And I think that was really hard to get men to understand. And because X amount of sharing didn't happen, so it meant the company wasn't performing to XYZ standards. But I think their inability to understand how women really operate was, I'd say, probably the biggest struggle. I'd say one of the things to be is trust yourself, because I think sometimes when you're younger, you do have that inner sort of that childishness, which allows you to trust yourself. But then as you get older and you get more involved with society, sometimes you can lose your voice. And so I think I would tell my 10-year-old self to hold on to that voice and that trust, especially when you're running a business. You hear so many different things, and your gut instinct, your inner voice, is usually spot on. But it's easy for it to get lost, and because doubt exists so much. So I definitely tell my 10-year-old self, don't ever lose that. It's a good question. I guess I worry about failure. I think you put in a lot of effort and your heart into something, and you believe in it. And I think the idea of well, not specifically failure, but having to give up. Because failure is one of those things that you can get up and relearn. But I think the idea of just giving up is scarier, because then you're not learning anything, you're just stopping it. So I think it's more the idea of giving up that scares me than failing or falling down or something. Perseverance. I think the idea of strength is perseverance, because you in the space that I am, or the field that I am with entrepreneurship, it's a marathon, and it is continuous hard work. So yeah, it's your ability to keep going. I think being a citizen of the world gives you great perspective. It allows you to really understand human behavior a little bit better, because at the core, we're all very similar in all of our needs. We all want to be loved, accepted, respected, and we just show it in different ways. And each culture, whether it's American or Middle Eastern or Indian or European, we're all ultimately seeking that. So I think when you're a citizen of the world, you have the ability to have seen someone reacting to the same thing, the same situation in a different way. And so when you come to the US market, because it's such a melting pot of cultures, all those different cultures come together and you're able to address them. I think growing up in European and Asian cultures, it's very community-based. And I think, maybe, and this might just be true to New York, because I haven't really lived much outside of New York, but it's a very individualistic solo thing. So I think that was a bit of a struggle in kind of adapting to being around people who are very community-based. And, when somebody asks how you're doing, we genuinely mean it, versus, here the social culture's very different. I have a mum and a dad, and I'm the oldest of 3 siblings. I have a younger sister and a younger brother. I got married last year, so I have a husband too now. And my upbringing was pretty great. We're a very tight-knit group of us. We traveled quite a lot. My parents have had a huge influence over just who I am as a person today, and even in just my industry choice, it was my mum's and my relationship, and the relationship she had, an understanding of natural skincare and beauty, and she kind of watching her, I sort of inherited elements of that, and she's very creative, and she sort of nurtured that. I actually did a post on my Instagram today about nurture and nature, and how our personalities, we have a certain set of personalities that we're just born with, your nature, but then it has to be nurtured to become into something, and much of like skincare and our bodies are like that, and so yeah, it was a great childhood, good combination of nature and nurture, basically. I found about VentureOut through, I think, Accelerator, one of the list of Accelerator programs, yeah. In New York, yeah. So when I did VentureOut in 2017, I was introduced to one of the mentors, or at that time, one of the mentors at XRC Labs, which we then got accepted into 2 months later. So today we officially launched our 2 new waterless skincare products on the website. We were doing soft launches in person, but it's officially now on our website. And we're working on launching a few more products next year. So it's going well. Like, just so that you know, there's a distinct difference between women that are from a certain type of group versus women that aren't, and it's the same boys club that also exists in women. And so if you are a woman of color, or kind of like a different ethnicity, and you haven't gone to a specific school, you do end up having the same funding issues than some of the women who aren't. So I don't want it to be controversial, but that's really the truth. I think being a woman of color, I grew up always just thinking I could do anything. It didn't matter what gender I was, what color of my skin was, or who I was. I just always was that's just how I function. But yes, it can be a bit of a challenge sometimes. I'm not going to lie. I know that people like to think everything's completely open yet, but I don't know if we're there yet. So it is hard at times, I'm not going to lie. Does it stop me? No. But yeah, I think it exists. I don't think you can pretend that it doesn't.